16 vintage actresses who slept their way to fame. In vintage Hollywood, talent alone wasn't enough. Some actresses had to go the extra mile to rise to the top. Behind the glittering lights and silver screens, whispers, rumors, and carefully curated images often determined who would become a star. Some faced relentless scrutiny, studio power plays, and the public's intense curiosity, turning every smile, every glance, every connection into a headline. To survive and thrive, they had to master the art of allure, charm, and perception. They built their careers on mystique and intrigue, doing whatever they could to rise to fame in their day, leaving behind legends that still fascinate today. Here are 16 vintage actresses who slept their way to fame. Marilyn Monroe. Before the world knew her name, Marilyn Monroe was just Norma Jean, a girl with curls, dreams, and an industry that ran on secrets. Hollywood in the 1940s wasn't a fairy tale, it was a marketplace, and beauty was the currency. Rumors swirled like cigarette smoke in studio corridors that a pretty face could trade more than just talent for opportunity, and Marilyn understood the game. Biographers say she once confessed that the casting couch wasn't a myth. It was a system. She was young, broke, and hungry for a name. Her charm drew men who held the keys to the kingdom: producers, photographers, even politicians. Her relationships with powerful men like Johnny Hyde, Darryl F. Zanuck, and later the Kennedys became part of her fame and legend. Her multiple affairs became a ladder for her career. Marilyn didn't just survive the system, she mastered it. She turned what was meant to use her into her greatest weapon: allure. The shy orphan became the ultimate fantasy, the woman every man wanted and every woman wanted to be. Elizabeth Taylor. In old Hollywood, love was a currency, and Elizabeth Taylor spent it like royalty. From her violet eyes to her scandalous affairs, Taylor became more than a movie star. She was a storm that studios couldn't control. Born in London and raised in Beverly Hills, she entered MGM's world at just 9 years old. But behind the angelic child actress was a woman who would one day rewrite every rule of love, fame, and power. By the 1950s, Elizabeth wasn't just an actress, she was the definition of beauty. Yet Hollywood wanted more than her talent. It wanted her heart, her scandals, her tears. When she fell in love, the tabloids followed like shadows. Her 8 marriages to 7 men were more famous than her Oscar wins. She married rich men, famous men, and broken men for fame and her career. The most notorious was her affair with Eddie Fisher, the husband of her best friend Debbie Reynolds. When Fisher left Reynolds for Taylor, America gasped, and Hollywood's golden girl became its villain. But instead of fading, she used it and rose higher, turning the scandal into fuel, and audiences couldn't look away. Taylor became the world's highest-paid actress, walking into every room like a queen. Then came Richard Burton, her fiercest lover and her greatest heartbreak. Their romance burned through 2 marriages, endless fights, and global headlines. Judy Garland. Judy Garland was the voice that could melt a room, tender, trembling, unforgettable. But behind that angelic sound was a woman chained to a system that fed on youth and obedience. From the moment MGM signed her at 13, Judy was never just a girl. She was an investment. And in old Hollywood, investments were controlled through fear, manipulation, and rumor. The studio machine built her image, the innocent, wide-eyed girl who made audiences dream of home. But that purity wasn't protected. It was marketed. Executives kept Judy under watch, managing her looks, her weight, and her love life. Whenever she grew close to anyone, an actor, director, or musician, the studio publicity team decided whether it would be turned into a romantic headline or silenced altogether. All of her affairs and relationships were used to push fame and popularity. When MGM dropped her, she rose again on concert stages, her voice raw and trembling, but magical. Audiences saw her not as the perfect child of Oz, but as a woman who had lived through everything: addiction, heartbreak, betrayal, and endless public scrutiny. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow wasn't just a face on the silver screen. She was the platinum blonde who defined an era. From the moment she stepped into Hollywood in the late 1920s, she was caught in a world where talent alone wasn't enough, where image, charm, and whispers of romance could make or break a star. The studios built her persona carefully. Harlow's sultry look, sparkling eyes, and irresistible charm became her calling card, but the gossip columns followed every step. Her flirtations with directors and producers, on-set romances created a buzz. In an industry obsessed with allure, whispers became headlines, and headlines became careers. Behind the camera, powerful men like Howard Hughes and various MGM executives were fascinated with her. Hollywood insiders at the time insisted that her closeness to these men helped her land iconic roles. These strongly amplified her fame, making audiences believe in a mystique that blended talent with scandal. Yet Harlow was no passive player. She knew how to use the studio's fascination to her advantage. She played up her persona with confidence, laughing off the gossip in interviews and allowing the publicity machine to make her a household name. By the time she starred in hits like Platinum Blonde and Dinner at 8, she was the face of a new Hollywood archetype: confident, provocative, and untouchably glamorous. Tragically, Harlow's life was short. She died at just 26. But even in death, the whispers never stopped. Rumors about her relationships, her charm, and her influence over powerful men became part of her story. Grace Kelly. Before she became royalty, Grace Kelly was the poised, beautiful ingenue that every studio dreamed of molding. MGM spotted her instantly, the perfect combination of elegance, class, and a hint of mystery that could be sold to audiences worldwide. But in the glamorous world of 1950s Hollywood, image wasn't everything. Influence, access, and gossip often shaped careers as much as talent. Grace's ascent wasn't just about her acting chops, it was about how the industry positioned her. Executives whispered about her poise, her charm, and the way she seemed untouchable, yet alluring. Rumors of secret relationships, on-set flirtations, and behind-the-scenes connections, all designed to make her more captivating to the public, created the perception that Grace was a woman who could command attention and increased her fame. Her collaborations with legendary directors like Alfred Hitchcock weren't just professional. She used it to elevate her image, turning her elegance into mystique. Meanwhile, tabloids speculated endlessly about her private life, romantic choices, and potential suitors, keeping her constantly in the public eye. Yet Grace Kelly was strategic. She navigated the studio system with grace and intelligence, carefully choosing roles that enhanced her allure. The gossip, the speculation, the rumors, whether about affairs or influential relationships, magnified her star power, making every appearance an event. Eventually, Grace traded Hollywood for Monaco, marrying Prince Rainier, and became a real-life princess. Anne Sheridan. Before she became the oomph girl, Anne Sheridan was a small-town girl with big dreams, stepping into the sprawling studios of 1930s Hollywood. Warner Brothers spotted her instantly. Her charm, her laughter, and her unique screen presence were irresistible. But behind the glamour, the industry ran on whispers, image, and influence. Studios had the power to create stars, and rumors were part of the machine that turned unknowns into icons. Anne's career took off when Warner Brothers marketed her sex appeal carefully, giving her the title The Oomph Girl, a label designed to generate fascination and tabloids' attention. Rumors about her affairs with producers, directors, and powerful studio men swirled in Hollywood columns, using her private life to sell stories. These whispers helped define her public image and made her one of the most talked-about actresses of the late 1930s and early 1940s. Sheridan wasn't a passive player in this system. She used her reputation, charm, and timing to negotiate better roles and bigger paychecks. The stories about her allure and romances amplified her box office value, turning every film release into a must-see event. Directors and studio executives knew she drew attention, both on screen and off, and they leveraged that to sell movies. Her performances in films like Angels with Dirty Faces and King's Row cemented her as a serious actress. But the combination of talent, beauty, and carefully cultivated mystique kept audiences captivated. Hollywood's fascination with her private life helped maintain her star power, using her affairs, rumors, and perception to shape her career. Clara Bow. Before she became the it girl, Clara Bow was a spirited girl from Brooklyn with a dream that stretched far beyond the subway lines of her hometown. In the roaring 1920s, Hollywood was hungry for energy, youth, and a face that could sell a film, and Clara had it all. But fame came with a cost, and the world of glitz and glamour was tangled with gossip, rumors, and the power of studio men who could make or break a career with a single word. Bow's rise was fast. She wasn't just attractive. She radiated charisma, vivacity, and a raw sexuality that audiences couldn't resist. Studios quickly learned how to market her allure, turning whispers of affairs into headlines and creating an aura of scandal around her personal life. On-set flirtations, secret romances, and relationships with producers and executives were top stories, painting Clara as both daring and dangerously desirable. The stories fueled curiosity and kept her name on everyone's lips. Despite the swirling gossip, Clara was a skilled navigator of Hollywood's power structure. She used her charm and timing to secure roles that showcased her talent. From It to Wings, every smile, wink, and scene of playful defiance added to her mystique. Studio executives realized her marketability went beyond acting. The rumors about her life made her unforgettable, ensuring box office hits and relentless publicity. But the cost of that attention was high. Constant scrutiny, invasive press, and the pressures of being the nation's sweetheart led to emotional strain, and Bow eventually retreated from Hollywood. Mae West. Mae West didn't just enter Hollywood, she stormed it. Long before she became the woman who could make an audience gasp with a single line, Mae was a bold, fearless performer on the stage, writing her own plays and commanding attention in a world where women were often told to stay in the background. When she made the jump to film in the 1930s, she brought that same defiance to the silver screen, dazzling audiences and unnerving studio executives in equal measure. Hollywood in the 1930s thrived on whispers, gossip, and scandals. Mae West understood this better than anyone. Known for her double entendres, clever quips, and unflinching sexual confidence, she became a magnet for stories about her relationships with powerful men in the industry. These stories, circulating in tabloids and society columns, only increased her mystique. People wanted to see the woman who could outwit the studio bosses, charm the directors, and leave the critics in shock. West's rise wasn't about playing the victim of the studio system. It was about bending it to her will. While gossip hinted at personal relationships with influential men, Mae made sure her fame increased together with her talent, intellect, and audacious personality. She wrote her own material, controlled her image, and negotiated contracts that were nearly unheard of for women at the time. Her boldness forced Hollywood to respect her on her terms. Films like She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel were not just box office hits. They were cultural events, demonstrating Mae's ability to turn scandal and affairs into empowerment. Rumors, whispers, and headlines about Mae West became part of the marketing itself. Joan Collins. Before she became an icon of glitz, glamour, and sharp-tongued elegance, Joan Collins was a young British actress stepping into Hollywood's dazzling yet ruthless world. In the 1950s, studios controlled nearly every aspect of an actor's life. From roles to relationships and gossip, was as powerful as any contract. Collins quickly learned that navigating this maze required more than talent. It required strategy, charm, and the ability to play the Hollywood game. Joan's striking beauty, poise, and fearless personality drew the attention of producers, directors, and studio executives. Her secret romances and behind-the-scenes connections circulated, painting her as a woman both daring and ambitious. Her relationships with these producers, directors, and studio executives influenced her career greatly, amplified her allure, giving her an edge in an industry that thrived on mystique. Hollywood loved a story, and Joan's emerging reputation made her irresistible. She skillfully navigated this world, choosing roles that showcased her versatility and flair. From romantic leads to strong, commanding women, the gossip that swirled around her helped maintain her visibility in a crowded industry. Collins's reputation as glamorous and unattainable became part of her brand, turning public curiosity into career momentum. By the time she returned to England to take on film and television projects in the 1960s, Joan Collins had mastered the art of public perception. The combination of talent, beauty, and carefully managed mystique ensured her lasting fame. Even decades later, audiences remember her not just for her performances, but for the persona, confident, glamorous, and ever intriguing. Joan Crawford. Before the spotlight adored her, Joan Crawford was a girl from humble beginnings, growing up in St. Louis with big dreams and fierce ambition. Hollywood in the 1920s and 1930s was a world dominated by powerful studio executives, gossip-hungry press, and strict contracts. For Crawford, navigating this world meant more than talent. It required determination, image management, and a keen understanding of how rumors could shape perception. Crawford's rise began at MGM, where she was transformed from a chorus girl into a leading lady. Studios carefully crafted her persona, emphasizing glamour, sophistication, and a hard-edged charm that distinguished her from other stars. Alongside her talent, her affairs amplified and allure. Whispers about friendships, flirtations, and studio connections kept audiences captivated and contributed to Crawford's fame, making her a household name and a bankable star. Joan wasn't just subject to Hollywood's machinery, she used it to her advantage. She worked tirelessly, negotiating contracts, demanding prominent roles, and cultivating an image of relentless professionalism. The rumors made her more visible, turning curiosity into public fascination and helping her secure some of her most iconic roles, including Mildred Pierce and Grand Hotel. Rita Hayworth. Before she became the woman who melted hearts worldwide, Rita Hayworth was Margarita Carmen Cancino, a talented dancer from Brooklyn with fiery ambition. Hollywood in the 1930s and 1940s wasn't just about talent, it was about image, influence, and the whispers that followed every move an actress made. For Rita, navigating this world meant balancing her undeniable allure with the relentless machinery of the studio system. Hayworth's rise began at Columbia Pictures, where studio head Harry Cohn took a personal interest in shaping her into a star. Cohn controlled nearly every aspect of her life: her appearance, her hair color, and her public image. He even arranged her transformation into the glamorous, red-haired love goddess the world would know. The studio's fascination and the rumors it fueled made her irresistible to audiences. Headlines hinted at on-set romances and private connections, and keeping Rita constantly in the public eye. Yet Rita wasn't simply a pawn. She trained rigorously, refined her craft, and knew how to use the studio's fascination and gossip to her advantage. Films like Gilda didn't just showcase her beauty, they highlighted her talent, charisma, and magnetic presence. She used the whispers about her personal life, relationships with powerful men, her marriages, and private struggles to enhance her mystique. creating a legend that Hollywood couldn't manufacture on its own. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner was a small-town girl from North Carolina with big dreams and a fiery spirit. Hollywood in the 1940s thrived on glamour, talent, and the relentless machinery of studio publicity. In Ava's case, her natural beauty and intensity caught the eye of powerful studio executives, and the rumors that swirled around her life only amplified her star power. Gardner's early years in Hollywood were shaped by MGM and Columbia Pictures, which carefully cultivated her image as a passionate, alluring woman. Stories of her affairs and romances with actors, musicians, and influential figures fueled public fascination and increased her fame. They made Ava impossible to ignore. A star whose personal life seemed as dramatic as her films. Audiences wanted to see her on screen and read about her off-screen, and the studios knew exactly how to turn that interest into box office gold. Despite the rumors, Ava was fiercely independent. She used her image and the public's curiosity to secure memorable roles in films like The Killers, The Barefoot Contessa, and Mogambo. The whispers about her personal life, her marriages, friendships, and rumored romances helped create a character that became inseparable from her talent. Hollywood learned that Ava's combination of charisma, beauty, and intrigue made her a bankable star, and she wielded this power subtly, often outsmarting the very system that tried to control her. Lana Turner. Before Lana Turner became the blonde bombshell known as Hollywood's sweater girl, she was a teenager spotted at a soda shop in Hollywood, a chance encounter that would launch her into stardom. But in the glamorous yet ruthless world of 1940s Hollywood, fame wasn't just about talent, it was about image, influence, and the ever-present machinery of gossip. For Lana, navigating this world meant balancing her natural charm with the relentless scrutiny of studio executives and tabloid headlines. Turner's rise was swift. MGM saw in her a combination of beauty, charisma, and a certain youthful allure that audiences couldn't resist. Her image was carefully cultivated, the innocent yet tantalizing girl next door, capable of commanding attention in every frame. Alongside her performances, rumors about her personal life, on-set friendships, romances with influential men helped increase her fame, kept her constantly in the public eye, making every film release an event. Despite the attention, Lana was no passive participant. She used her image and the curiosity surrounding her private life to advance her career, securing memorable roles in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice and Daisy Kenyon. Hollywood understood that the mix of allure, talent, and carefully cultivated mystique made Lana Turner a star audiences would never forget. Lana Turner remains an icon not just for her beauty or performances, but for how she navigated the studio system, using relationships and affairs to boost her career and increase her fame. Her rise shows that in an era obsessed with glamour and perception, an actress could use rumors and her talent to command attention, leaving a legacy that still captivates audiences today. Marilyn Miller. Before she became one of Broadway's brightest stars, Marilyn Miller was a small-town girl with big dreams and a voice that could enchant any audience. Rising to fame in the 1910s and 1920s, Miller became the face of musical theater, dazzling crowds with her charm, energy, and sparkling performances. But behind the glittering lights, the world of show business was a complicated web of power, influence, and carefully managed image. And Marilyn learned quickly how gossip could shape a career. From the start, the media was fascinated by her beauty, talent, and magnetic stage presence. Rumors about relationships with producers and directors swirled in the press, creating an interest around the young star. Marilyn Miller had a special connection to the people who controlled Broadway's biggest shows, making audiences and insiders alike watch her every move. Miller's rise was fueled not only by her extraordinary performances in hits like Sally and Sunny, but also by her ability to navigate the backstage world of influence. She understood that charm, professionalism, and strategic connections could elevate her beyond other actresses of the era. The whispers and gossip about her life only enhanced her charm, turning her into a household name and a symbol of Broadway glamour. Despite the attention, Marilyn remained focused on her craft. She trained rigorously, danced tirelessly, and gave every performance the sparkle audiences expected. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's rise to Hollywood fame was fast, fueled by beauty, charisma, and a presence that couldn't be ignored. Born in 1927 in South Bend, Indiana, she moved to Los Angeles as a young woman chasing stardom. Hollywood in the 1940s and 1950s was a world dominated by studios, gossip columns, and public perception, and Barbara quickly learned how her image, combined with the swirling rumors around her, could propel her into the spotlight. Payton's early career was shaped by her work with RKO and Universal, but it was the media attention, both earned and manufactured, that made her a household name. Rumors about her relationships with actors and industry figures circulated widely, creating a mystique that Hollywood loved to exploit. These gossip columns amplified her allure, helping her land high-profile roles in films like Kiss Tomorrow, Goodbye, and The Big Clock. Barbara understood the power of her persona. She combined talent with charm and let the public fascination with her personal life elevate her profile. Whether the headlines were about her romances, friendships, or off-screen drama, studios recognized that the combination of beauty, buzz, and curiosity could be as effective as any publicity campaign, and they used it to keep her in the public eye. Yet, the constant scrutiny came at a price. Hollywood's pressures, coupled with relentless gossip, created personal challenges that would later impact her career. Payton's story illustrates the darker side of fame, how image and perception could both build and destroy a career in classic Hollywood. Barbara Payton's legacy is more than just her films. It's a story of beauty, talent, and the complicated interplay of gossip, studio influence, and personal ambition. A woman who went the extra mile for fame and career. Kim Novak. In the glitzy world of 1950s Hollywood, beauty was currency and mystery was a magnet. Kim Novak, with her doe-like eyes, striking poise, and quiet sophistication, became the embodiment of both. But behind the camera and the silver screen, the industry was anything but serene. The studio system ruled with an iron fist. Gossip columns thrived, and actresses learned quickly that talent alone was often not enough to rise or survive. For Novak, navigating this world meant walking a delicate tightrope between allure, public perception, and the ever-present gaze of Hollywood power. Born Marilyn Pauline Novak in 1933 in Chicago, Kim was initially drawn to art and music. Her beauty, however, made her impossible to ignore, and Columbia Pictures signed her in the early 1950s. The studio immediately set out to polish, package, and market her, not just as an actress, but as a symbol of glamour, sophistication. Rumors about off-screen relationships, whispered flirtations, and backstage intrigues began to circulate, and these stories only amplified her public appeal. In a way, the gossip became an unspoken marketing tool, shaping her image as the mysterious, untouchable star audiences couldn't stop watching. Novak's breakthrough came with Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo in 1958, a film that cemented her as a cinematic icon. Hitchcock, notorious for his meticulous control over his actors' performances and public images, elevated Novak's mystique, blending suspense, allure, and emotional complexity in a way few actresses experienced at the time. The media attention surrounding her work, combined with whispers of personal entanglements, fed into the Hollywood narrative that being both talented and tantalizing could open doors, but also that those doors were tightly controlled by powerful men. Despite the pressure, Novak maintained a remarkable combination of dignity and control. She was strategic about the roles she chose, doing whatever she could for fame. Rumors and whispers, whether about studio executives, directors, or socialites, boosted her. Including her talent, poise, and selective public presence speak for itself. The stories swirling around her only added to her legend, making every appearance, every interview, and every screen performance a moment audiences felt they were witnessing something rare. Yet the Hollywood spotlight was not without its shadows. The same gossip and power dynamics that elevated Novak also contributed to her professional frustrations, studio pressures, personal conflicts, and the relentless scrutiny of her private life created challenges that shaped her career decisions. Still, she navigated the industry with a combination of grace and savvy, proving that a woman could command attention without surrendering her integrity entirely. The golden era of Hollywood is often remembered for its glitz, glamour, and iconic faces. But behind the sparkling smiles and red carpet gowns lay a harsher, hidden reality. Many vintage actresses, desperate to carve a place in an industry dominated by powerful men, faced impossible choices. For some, the path to stardom meant more than talent, charisma, or perseverance. It demanded compromising their dignity and playing the game. The casting couch, whispered deals, and unspoken expectations became the invisible ladder some felt forced to climb. It wasn't merely ambition driving them, it was survival, the need to secure roles, contracts, and recognition in a system that offered little protection and even less respect for women. These women, now immortalized on screen, often carried private scars that audiences never saw. Their journeys remind us that the glamour we idolize was, for many, built on a foundation of sacrifice, manipulation, and coercion. Reflecting on their stories is necessary. It shines a light on the pervasive power dynamics of the past and invites a reckoning with how far the industry has come and how far it still must go to truly honor talent without compromise. Which of these actresses surprised you the most? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more vintage stories.